Hello, I'm Dr. Greg Winteregg, CEO of the Private Dentist Alliance. I want to talk to all of you students out there today who are wondering what your future is going to be like as a career in dentistry. As an assistant, as a hygienist, as a dentist, where is this profession going with the rapid increase of the DSO movement? I'm here to tell you that PDA is going to help you, and I want you to become a member today. It is free. Now, why should you become a member? You're going to get weekly video updates from me, and you're going to get regular updates of our newsletters from the Alliance on exactly what is happening and how we are going to help preserve and protect the private practice of dentistry. Now, to me, the most important advantage is you are going to get access to our job board. What is that? Our private practicing members all have access to our PDA job board, which means if they have an opening in their private practice of assistant, hygienist, doctor, front office staff, they're going to be able to post it. And you're going to be able to check up regularly. And as our membership grows, we're going to be covering larger and larger territories across the United States. If you are looking for a job in any position in the office of a private practice, you need to become a student member today. It is free. Go to www.privatedental.org and become a student member today. You're going to love your benefits. Do it now.
What is up, guys? It's your boy Matt Havis back at it with the Dental Student Vibes podcast. Today we have a super cool interview for you. We have Chief Financial Analyst Eric Miller. He is sitting here talking to us about how to manage your finances, how to keep everything in line as you build your wealth using your dental practice, and how to make your dental practice fuel your life. So tune in, check it out. Follow us on Instagram at dental.student.vibes. Let us know. Give us a like, comment, review. We love to hear your feedback. Stay safe and vibe on.
Welcome back to another episode of the Dental Student Vibes podcast. I'm your host, Seth Kalish, Cole Herzik, Matt Havis. They're all here. And today we have the one and only Eric Miller. Eric has been in the financial planning industry for over 20 years. He's the co-owner of Econologics Financial Advisors and the Chief Financial Advisor. He has a degree from Capital University and is a registered financial consultant and licensed insurance agent. He takes pride in helping practice owners become the financial heroes of their own stories and has taken this passion to over 600 families in the past decade. During this time, he's had over 15,000 conversations with practice owners regarding money, investing, practice expansion, practice transitions, taxes, asset protection, estate planning, and helping them shape their financial attitude toward abundance. Econologics Financial Advisors is an Inc. 5000 honoree for 2019 as one of the fastest growing companies in the U.S. Eric, the man, you've done it all, man. How are you today?
Jeez, man, it aged me right there. It makes me feel old. My gosh.
Well, we're happy to have you on here. So much stuff for us to talk about. Honestly, we love these topics. We love anybody who can help out dentists, dental students, future dentists, anybody. You know, we work so hard to get to this point, and then boom, we get slapped in the face with a bunch of student loans. And, you know, you really got to figure out how to properly allocate your funds once you get out of school, and all the new dentists as well. So Eric, can you give us a little more background about yourself, how long you've been doing this and all that stuff?
Yeah, real quick. I started in Ohio and I had a pretty traditional financial planning background. I don't know if you guys ever dealt with financial advisors in the past, but mostly it's just most advisors' first question is how much do you got? Right? For me to invest. That's the first question that most advisors have. And when we started 12 years ago, I was like, I don't really want to do that. I want to work with entrepreneurs. I want to work with business owners because they feel like they're in charge of their destiny. So I want to work with people like that. And then I want to work with with people where I felt like I can actually make a meaningful difference in their finances. And so we picked a niche, and it was working with private practice owners. And I found out in about, I don't know, about 10 minutes that if I'm going to help private practice owners, whether it's dentists or veterinarians or whoever it is, I got to know something about where their money's coming from, and that is their business. And if I don't know how that business works or operates or how to make it better or improve it, then the cash flow that they're not going to earn enough cash flow that I can show them how to channel that to the household so that they can create, personal financial wealth. So that's really where, working with practice owners and dental practices started, was just me trying to figure out, like, how does this practice work, and how can I show these people how to better utilize it for the benefit of their household.
That's awesome. So Eric, can you start us off and talk about how to treat your practice like an investment?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. So look at it this way. Like, if you look at corporate America out there, you guys ever heard the concept of a parent company? Like, you look at like some of these really big corporations, they all have like this parent company, right? And that parent company owns, like Facebook, for example, owns like 83 different companies. Okay, those are all junior companies to the parent company of Facebook. So, you look at it, the whole nation is made up of households, right? That's what it's made up of. Like, all the businesses out there are not, they're owned by individuals. They're owned by households, right? So the first concept that I try to get through to people is like, look, number one, your household is a business. You got to run it as such, okay? And your practice is simply an investment of the household. So therefore, you got to make sure that like, if you had an investment, what do you do to it? You take care of it, right? You make sure that it's profitable. You make sure that it's sustainable. You make sure that it's valuable. And that's where it starts. Your practice isn't a job where you go to it, right? If you're just a practitioner-minded person, then it is. But if you're really going to have your practice worth something, you got to understand how to be a good executive and how to be a good owner. And those are the three roles that you have. And if you can play those roles in owning a business, know how to do them really, really well, then now you're treating this thing like an actual investment and not just a job. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Total sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now when we're getting into, okay, let me start you off here. So I know, so I've been looking at a lot of practices, right? To buy. And I see there are so many practices out there where they're doing like 300-400 and the dentist is taking home like 90-100. And, I know obviously they're like phasing out and stuff, but like, that's what you're saying. Like, you work hard for everything, and you need to, especially when you're on your way out, you need to treat it like an investment and not just let all the production fall downhill and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's usually what happens. Like, you look at the timeline of a practice owner, you first start out, you're all gung ho, I'm going to build this thing. And then you get stuck as just a practitioner, right? And that's all you do. And then after 10 or 12 years, you're like, well, I'm making a pretty decent living, but I'm not really interested in this other work, that I have to do if I really want to grow and expand this thing. So what do? They just kind of let it go. It's kind of like, if you look at anybody that doesn't take care of themselves after a while, what happens? They start getting fat. They start not taking care of themselves. Same thing with your practice, right? So, they start letting the profit come down. They start not caring about getting new patients in the door. They stop pushing services that they should. And all of a sudden, this thing that may have been worth, 600,000 or 700,000 at its height is now only going to be worth 300,000 or 400,000 because the earnings aren't there to match what the value would be, So, yeah, I try to really push people, like, the before you sell your practice, man, you should be at your highest revenue and highest profit margin in the last couple of years if you really want to get max value for it,
Right.
But man, there's definitely a lot of dentists out there that just don't have that mindset. And again, it's your owner and executive mindset. That is the key, because you guys are all going to school to be awesome practitioners, right? And you guys are going to be the best practitioners in the world. And that's great. That is the lowest paying part of owning a business. If you're a good executive and a super good owner that thinks strategically, that can build a team, build a good culture, you know what I mean, and have that kind of that mindset of how do I expand, then now you're being a good owner. And that's where the profit comes in. And then that's where the value comes in.
That's excellent. So then you're on the subject of, wanting to make sure that practice is at its highest grossing number right before you're about to exit. So let's talk about that. So how can a practitioner ensure prior to selling, how can they ensure that they're, taking those profits to the absolute max, 1 to 2 to even 10 times that number? What can they do? What are some steps?
Okay. Well, I mean, first off, what areas does a buyer look at when they're buying a business, right? Like what are areas that they want to see? Number one, they want to make sure that it's not all reliant just upon one person. So it'd be, obviously in dental, you have, obviously the dentist, but there's other services that you can provide inside of that practice. So making sure that every division, every income source is evaluated, making sure that that area is growing, and that you're not reliant just on one income source. So like I would break down all of my income sources that I have in my practice, and figure out which are the ones are the highest demand, which ones are the highest profit, and which ones are the easiest to deliver, and build my business around those income sources. A buyer's going to want that, right? Because they're going to want to be able to have those same things. What else? Well, obviously all the corporate records and everything need to be in really, really good shape, and your financials should be in really, really good shape, because again, if they're going to buy something, they don't want to buy a mess, right? They don't want to buy something that is like, oh my God, I got to fix all this stuff. There's back taxes owed. They don't owe, their equipment is in terrible shape. I have to fix all this stuff, right? So your assets and your equipment of your practice are really, really key. Make sure that those things are in tip-top shape. And then the facility itself, are you leasing it? Is it a good lease arrangement? Because if I'm buying a practice and I'm leasing the building, I want to make sure I'm buying a good lease, something that I can, is going to be a fixed cost. So there's all kinds of things you can do as an owner to make sure that all you're trying to do is transition this valuable thing that you've created to somebody else and make it super easy on them to be able to take ownership of it, right? And if you can do that, then you're going to be able to get top dollar. You can ask top dollar for it. But if there's all these problems, then you're just not going to get the value that you thought you were going to get.
Right.
So those are a couple of things. I hope those help.
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, I'm looking at practices right now. What are some of the, let's say, most important KPIs, key production indicators, that you would say I need to really focus on? And also, so Eric, we're before we get into this, I was thinking like we should make some sort of algorithm to like put all the numbers, all the KPIs together, and then somehow it ranks all the practices that you're looking at. You know what I mean? That would be awesome.
It would be cool. How many practices are you guys looking at? Is it just like?
Oh, I got several, and you're from the Florida Bay Area. Yeah, I got a few that I'm looking at right now.
Okay. For me, new patients is always an indicator, right? Because if you're gonna buy something, you don't want it to be dying. And if there's no new patients is always a good indicator for me. So what's the online presence like of that practice? That'd be something that I would certainly look at. What's the tenure of their staff like? That would be something I would look at. Because again, if I'm going to go in there, do I got to clean up a mess? Do I got to clean house? I mean, if they had a practice manager that's 70 years old and is just stuck in their ways, and I got to go in there and I got to fire this person, and do it happens. I see it'll happen all the time. So I think when in my conversations with buyers, because I'll talk to some of the big corporate buyers out there, and I'll ask them, I'm like, hey man, what are you really looking at? Like, what are you looking at? And in most cases, that these underlying things you don't think about, the culture of the organization. Like I saw a $14 million deal get nixed because the corporate buyer found out how toxic the environment was amongst the staff. And they're like, you know what? I don't care what the cash flow looks like. I don't want anything to do with this.
Wow.
And they nixed the deal the day before. How do you think that buyer felt?
So how can you tell us a little more? Like, how do they find out like these intangible, sort of qualities about a practice, like the culture?
Well, they ask a lot of questions when they're going through the due diligence phase, right? They interview people. They make sure that, if you're going to spend $15 million on something, I guarantee you're going to send a team in there and you're going to know the ins and outs of that practice,
Fine-tooth comb, yeah.
with a fine-tooth comb, right? So, maybe it's not on what you guys are doing, it's kind of a lesser scale, but it's kind of the same thing that I would look at, right? Like what am I buying? Because you're buying people. I mean, when you buy a business, you're going to be buying people. It's not just equipment and, lists and those kinds of things. You're also, it's the systems. Like, do they have job descriptions that are written up? Do they have an organizational chart in the business? Like, what are some of these things that would allow me to get in there and be able to work so that I can, start growing the practice. I'm going to need people that know what they're doing and how to do it to be able to do that. So training is a big thing too when it comes to staff. Like, do they have a training system set up to train new people? Is there a hiring system set up to hire new people? What's that look like? I mean, it is a lot of things, but this is where you get paid. It's not for just doing dental work. If you really want to get paid, it's this executive and owner functions. That is really where you guys will separate yourself from the guys that you're buying from. I mean, look at the practices that you're looking at right now, $300,000-$400,000 in revenue.
Yeah, I'm not interested.
Hell no, man. I mean, you should be looking at like, how can I build this thing to $2 to $3 million?
Right.
If not more.
So here's the problem. Some of the brokers that I'm talking to, they're like, most of these 800 plus practices, they get bought up like that. And like a lot of times, the bigger groups will buy them Heartland for 110% of their production or something like that.
Yeah. This is where the numbers game comes into play. Not all these dentists want to sell to corporate. Right. I mean, they don't. Some of these guys want to leave a legacy. The majority of them would probably prefer to be able to transition to somebody else. You just got to talk to them. You just got to find out, like, and kind of hit that point. Like, look, I don't want that. You don't want to just sell to corporate like everybody else. Let me show you how to leave a legacy. And, that may require them to carry a note, because, you guys,
right.
I don't know how you guys are with your finances, but I don't, having $1.5 million just sitting around to buy the practice in the real estate may not be in the cards. So you either have to go get a loan from Bank of America, whoever it is, or have them carry a note, which would be really good for them.
I just spent my last $1 million on my Bugatti, so I'm strapped.
There you go. Now. Well, hopefully it's like, is it red or is it black? So,
well, it's blue and black.
Yeah, there you go. But to my point, I think you can spin a deal with these guys just by calling as many as you possibly can, and you'll find them. You'll find some out there. Hell, right. I probably have some clients out there that are looking to sell. But
right here.
There you go. All right, I'll try to hook you up. But yeah, man, it's just a numbers game of trying to talk to as many people. But I think if you do that, you're good to find. All you need is one or two, man. All you need is one or two. There's plenty of people out there that would like to transition their business without selling to corporate.
Right.
That's but the problem is though, like the temptation is there. Like I'm from the Fort Lauderdale area. There's a lot of dentists in that area that they built a beautiful practice. It makes a lot of money, and come in and they're offering 200% like of what it is. Like, and like a doctor, like a private practicing doctor can't offer that. So if you're just in it for the money and you're like, wow, I could just hit the lottery right now after all my hard work. It's there's a lot of temptation to it.
I get it, man. I get it. It's like, and I guess it all depends on if they've handled their personal finances as well, because some of them, if they were smart, then, they kind of insulated their household and, created reserves and passive income and paid off their debt and all that, where they're not like reliant upon the practice sale. Then maybe it's like not as important to get the big high multiples for them. Okay. So that would be a case for, how to get someone to convince someone if they're not in need of big corporate multiples. But yeah, you're right. I don't know how long these multiples are going to be able to last. We'll see. As long as there's a lot of cheap money around, and there's a lot of these big private equity groups that need to position this money to get returns, they're overpaying for stuff right now. I just don't know how long it's going to last.
Right. So then, Eric, taking a step back here. So for some of our listeners that aren't as well versed with some of this stuff and maybe need a little bit more help than things that we're talking about in this discussion. So it's always good to have a team or to know who to go to delegate and to learn these things that they need to know when looking at a practice, when evaluating. So what do you think is needed in that, tool belt for that new grad or student or current practitioner that's looking to purchase practices and looking to do some evaluations? Who do they need?
It is a good question, because you do need to, like, once you jump into that realm of I want to be an owner, now I need to build like my little mini financial team around me. Certainly you're going to need a good qualified CPA, because they're going to be the ones that'll do a lot of analysis of the profit and loss statements and can help you with that. So, and if you can find like an industry specific CPA, like a industry specific dental CPA, that would be beneficial. You guys have a broker, someone that can do like a proper valuation or professional valuation. You would want to have someone like that on your team, most definitely. You're going to need to have a good attorney. So you'll need a business attorney, someone that understands how, all the different agreements that you're going to need in terms of the acquisition of the practice. And then, I'm an industry specific financial advisor, right? So my job is to make sure that the person's household is, or the practice owner's household is taken care of. So I think having a good financial advisor that understands how your business integrates in your household is also really key as well. So those would be some of the people that, and then, a practice consultant. I don't know if you guys ever have seen practice consultants out there. I can't tell you how valuable I think a really good consultant is, practice consultant, business consultant can be in just keeping your focused attention on building value in the business. I think that's super, super key. Because, you get going, start making money, you want to do all these other things, and you kind of forget about taking care of the business, and hence, the things that happen to the business happen, and that's no good.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a huge misconception with that too, because people think like if you're seeing a practice consultant or like even in your personal life, you're seeing a therapist, you have problems. But that doesn't mean you have problems. You can just go to optimize everything, see what can be done better, like that's.
I'm just the guys that I've seen that have the biggest, most valuable businesses all started out working with business consultants, right? And maybe you don't stay with them forever because you learn and you figure out how to run a business. You figure out all these things on your own. You figure out, just like you said, what KPIs I'm gonna use, what management system am I gonna use? Am I one of those guys that's gonna be like an owner practitioner, or do I want to be an owner executive? You kind of figure out yourself from there, and then you take it to the top, right? But I think starting out, getting that kind of help is super, super valuable, just to help you on running the business.
Very cool.
So like you were just mentioning about what you do. So what are some of the more common questions that you get from practice owners? Maybe 1, 2, or 3 of the most common problems that they might have, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's number one, most people underestimate the amount of income, assets, and resources that they actually need to be able to live the life that they want to live. Like, I don't know what you guys have ever been told, like, how much do you need? $5 million in assets, $8 million in assets, $2 million in assets, What is it that you think you need?
9. It's 9.
There you go.
You get like 280 or something off of your investments.
Yeah. But that you got to start thinking, and that most people don't think like that. Most people, it's like, they've always been told their whole life, hey man, if you just like save a couple $1 million in your 401k, then at some point in time you'll be able to retire and everything will be, will be good. And I'm like, no, you can't think like that. I mean, you're only one economic crash, one shutdown, one health issue, one lawsuit away from losing millions of dollars. So your target's got to be, in that $7 to $10 million range. starting off with, right? Of
Mhm.
like, I got to build value in my business. I got to make sure that it's profitable, and I got to take a big chunk of that profit and use that to create other income sources while I'm building my business at the same time, right? And my goal is to get to that $10 million in assets, because just like you said, you take 10 million, even at like a 5% interest rate, what is that? $500,000 a year in income? That's the number, So I think the first thing is that you can't underestimate how much you need, right? So, as an advisor, my job is to give you targets. It's like, this is your target, right? It's not 2 million, it's 10 million, right? And at least that's the target. Then we can start, figuring out like, what's the gradient approach to be able to get there. And, I'll tell you another problem that I see a lot of, and maybe not so much in the dental space, but it does happen where people aren't really paying themselves. They pay themselves as practitioners, right? You guys pay yourself a salary or whatever it is, but
Mhm.
they don't compensate themselves as owners. So the first thing that I'd have any one of you guys do when you first started your business, I'd have you set up an outside, what I call wealth storage account, and I'd have you take the first 10% of whatever you make and just set it aside in that account,
Mhm.
right? For the benefit of creating other income streams outside of the business, just like a bill, right? Like 10% right off the top. Learn how to operate that business and your lifestyle on the rest, but take that first 10% and it's gone, right? And I've seen people save $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in a year just by making that a bill, and
That's fantastic.
it is the best thing you could ever do for yourself. And it makes that owner feel like, oh man, this is actually worth like all the blood, sweat, and tears and all the notes that I got to carry and all the BS I got to deal with, all the staff and all that stuff. It's like, this is worth it because I'm paying myself as I should.
Right.
So I think that'd be another big thing I would do.
Okay. So, okay, I got a ton of questions for you now about all this.
I haven't
So,
gotten to taxes yet, guys, but
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Oh, listen, I love taxes, man. It sounds crazy, but I love taxes.
You're the only
So,
one that does.
I love taxes. Tom Wheelwright. Yeah. So,
yeah,
with that wealth storage account, are
yeah.
you allocating that money from your profits generated? That's not from your income. It's not like income tax.
It is revenue. The money comes in from whatever services that you're delivering that week. 10% goes right into that wealth storage account.
Okay, so it's almost like a consulting or personal management account or something like
You
that.
want to call it whatever you want to, man.
Okay, cool.
People have named it. We just finally came up with a wealth storage account, right?
Yeah.
I've heard other people say other things too. I'm just trying to figure out a way in which that's going to be the central account. Like, I mean, obviously you guys want to build passive income, right?
Right.
That's where it's coming from.
Okay, so then what are you putting that money into? Are you putting it into like real estate or like how are you?
Generally I'll split that up into 3 different buckets,
Mhm.
and, I know a lot of people have different affinity for different types of investment. As a fiduciary though, I have to be somewhat prudent. Like I can't just tell people just I'll put all your money into real estate because it's not prudent for me to do that. So typically what I'll do is I'll say, break it up in a third, 33%, 33%, 33%, put 33% into kind of traditional stock and dividend paying, investing, 33% into, believe it or not, insurance-based products. That'd be like cash value life insurance and those kinds of things. And I know that you guys have been told those things are like the worst thing since the devil. They're not. And I can tell you, you look at some of the biggest banks that are out there, they own hundreds of billions of dollars of boring old cash value life insurance. It's a real stable asset. You guys can use it to leverage and buy other assets at some point in time. And you're going to earn a lot more than you would in just sitting in a bank or a CD. And then the other 33% would go into whatever real estate endeavors you want to get into, whether you like to, you want to buy it yourself and try to manage it, or you want to deal with like operators out there that kind of specialize in self-storage or apartment complexes or mobile home parks or whatever it is.
Mhm.
You can do that. So I typically have people split it up in those 3 categories, a third, a third, a third, but there's nothing written in stone that said you couldn't do 50% in real estate and the rest in the other categories as well.
Right. Okay. So now, what if you're an associate? Now, how do you figure that out? That's always my question, because a lot of docs will associate for the first couple of years. Do you go as a 1099 or what do you do?
Well, you know, that's probably, I don't know if I have a really good answer for that. As far as saving though, you would just up it to like probably about 30 or 40% of your money.
Mhm.
I would bank on saving right off the top, right? And I'd live like a friggin' student, and I'd knock off all of the, it sucks. The guys that came out of school that I saw that really were able to handle their debt the best, they just kind of continued living. Number one, they produced like mad. Like they didn't like say, okay, I'm just gonna coast. They went in there and they produced like monsters for whoever they were working with, and they saved 30% of their income. Excuse me. And then they work like hell to get their student loan debts paid off as fast as they humanly possibly could. And yeah, they didn't get to buy the big nice car or have the big nice house at that point in time, but I'm telling you, 10 15 years later, they are in a much better financial shape than the guys that didn't do that are still doing it. So that would be my advice on in that end.
That's great. Yeah, because that's always something that we're always thinking about. Now,
I think there's this idea that, the student loans shouldn't be paid back or just kind of get forgiven or something like that.
Mhm.
And, I don't know, man. I guess I'm one of those guys that, hey, look, if you made an agreement to pay it back, then you should pay it back.
Right.
And I think that if you have that mentality, then you're going to open yourself up to have a lot better things happen to you than those people that just kind of like are irresponsible about it. Like everybody I've ever seen, worst one I saw was like a girl had like $500,000 of student loan debt. And I'm just like, she's like just trying to figure out all these ways that she can navigate. I was like, what, why did you sign on this thing? Then I've come to find out that she used most of the money to go travel abroad and do some stupid
Oh, that's good.
Backpack across Europe.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. Then my sympathy level went almost to zero at that point in time. But look, I think at the end of the day, you guys got the big debt. Okay, it's no problem. You guys can make a lot of money, right off the top.
Right.
Veterinarians or optometrists or some of the other people we deal with, they can't make as much as you guys can.
Right.
So you guys can really handle that quickly and still bank money at the same time. And it may suck living for a couple of years, but it's totally worth it because you prepare yourself financially and you look a lot better on paper for a bank when you're going to ask for $1 million in loans too.
Mhm.
So that would be another thing I would think about.
Right. So speaking of that, when you have all those student loans, when you want to, do you think that it's a good idea to either like kind of push the loans back opposite to what you were saying and go for the practice and try and take on more leverage so that you can buy the practice, or what do you think?
I can hear you.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Our internet. Okay. So do you think it's better, or do you think that it's okay to take on more loans and reduce the amount that you're paying back to your student loans, take on the business loans to buy the practice, and just kind of pay the minimum on the student loans?
I mean, if you get a good opportunity to do that, I mean, who am I to tell you no? I mean, at the end of the day, I try to get people like before they really start looking at expansion and business acquisition to try to handle their personal side as best you can to have plenty of reserves and debt and everything like that. But one thing I do know is that if you got the bug, you guys can just make anything go right. So if you find a good opportunity, I wouldn't have that as a consideration. I'd be like, man, if this is a good opportunity, I'm just going to jump on it right now.
Right.
And then then roll with it,
Right.
But there are things that I do try to look at financially speaking before people try to like do a big expansion project or buy another practice or something like that.
Mhm.
Because I don't want to overburden. Like the weight of obligation is really rough on people. Like you ever see what debt does to people? I mean, it really does kind of put them in a negative, kind of a negative headspace.
Mhm.
So, but if you feel like you can do it and you can make it go right, then do it and make it go right.
Okay. So here's a interesting stat. I was talking to somebody recently who was trying to get a loan for their second practice, like you were just saying, expanding, right? And I guess the bank told them that they need 1.38 times their expected overhead of the future practice. And then they need that at their current practice so that they can, and then they would approve them for the loan.
Yeah.
That's kind of like an interesting stat there.
Yeah, banks are I mean, if you're going to ask me how to try to figure out what banks figure out, man, some of the things I've seen people with pristine balance sheets, tons of cash, right? Equity in their buildings and everything like that, still get denied loans for some really stupid reason. And then, you look out there and you have other people that I'm looking at, I'm like, how in the hell did the bank approve you for $3.5 million? I'm like, you're a hot mess. Like, how did you do that? I'm like, we just applied. I'm like, okay. So the lending system is certainly not super rational. I guess the probabilities are going to be better that if you do have having cash definitely helps. Having something of collateral definitely helps. And the real estate being involved would probably definitely help if you're going to acquire something. Because most banks love the real estate part of that, if you can get it.
So recently with COVID and everything, pandemic, what have you seen with practice transitions in terms of financing? Have you seen has it been like multiple sources, like you said, like seller financing in addition to bank financing? How's it been looking?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a combination of the two. The corporates don't need that. They can just go in there and they usually buy 70% of your practice, and then you leave 30% or 20% in there, and then you're just working for them, right? And you got a little piece of ownership in there. But they usually pay up front pretty well, and they may hold back a little bit, but just not much. But if you want to do like a sell to an associate or some kind of an internal sale, you're just going to have to be willing to carry a note if you're a buyer, I think. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, look, if you mentor the person right, number one, you can get a pretty good interest rate on the loan. A buyer can probably charge like someone, like you guys, like 6 or 7%, because it's a riskier endeavor. And where are you going to find 6 or 7% out there right now? I mean, it's just not happening. Yeah. And then of course the capital gains tax that you would incur as a seller, if you do like a seller financing, it spreads out the capital gain tax over the term of the installment, right? So it just kind of minimizes that liability. So that would be another strategy that if I'm selling that can help from a capital gains point of view, because that number is going to go up, probably in the next year or two. Yeah. And if you start making a lot of money, then, you could really get hit in the mouth with 30% capital gains, 35% capital gains.
Yeah.
Don't move to California, guys.
Have you seen people do from like the smaller local banks that are more willing to give the loans? Have you seen people do like loans from multiple different banks? Is that a common thing?
You probably can't. I haven't seen that. It's usually a combination of a seller finance and then just a bank loan. And, I know that there's, banks that work specifically with probably new dentists that are pretty prevalent out there as well.
Okay. So now backing up to what you were talking about before, I'm very interested in, you said that kind of $10 million mark as a goal, right?
Yeah.
So talking about your clients that have reached that $10 million mark, what is the theme with their financial activities? What are some investments that they kind of, invested in? And then also, what was their attitude? Were they super frugal, or were they just like throwing everything into all these different investments?
No, they were willing to start on a gradient. When I say they kind of started small, but they started with something right away, right? And it was the habits. Like your wealth, when you ever talk with an advisor, they're like going to give you like this chart that's going to show you if you like put $10,000 away for 20 years, it's kind of linear, right? Well, man, your financial life isn't just a straight line, right? What ends up happening if you really are doing the right things is like the majority of your wealth, it's kind of like a hockey stick, right? You're going to see it really, really multiply. and kind of, what's that term?
Exponentially.
Yeah.
Exponentially, yeah, towards those last, 5 or 6 years. That's where you really start seeing a majority of your wealth increase. But a lot of my friends that started, were in like that $1 million practice range, or just started out, again, it was paying themselves that 10%. That was a big thing that they did. It was being super aggressive on taxes, not just taking their accountants like conservative viewpoint and saying, no, let's utilize some, advanced tax strategies. And really and truly, it was just making sure that the business grew that was important to them, just the growth of the business, because that is the engine of your wealth until it's not. Right? That should be the end of your focus. 90% of your attention should be, how do I build a more profitable and valuable business? And then over time, by doing that, by taking that 10%, now they're able to they can look, oh my God, now I got like $2 or $3 million just sitting aside right here. Right. And it number one, it gives them confidence. It makes the wives feel good. Right. They can wipe out their debt, and now they can just concentrate on continuing to grow the practice. Like the value of a practice in your real estate can really grow really, really fast, because of the way the multiples are. I mean, the higher the earnings, the higher the multiple. So if you can increase your earnings, then the multiple, which is what the value is based upon, can increase really, really fast as well. So it's not unusual for me to see someone go from like a $1.5 million practice to a $3 million practice in the scope of like maybe a year and a half, 2 years, just because they get their earnings, increasing, they add more associates, and they build their business that way.
Right.
But that's where a majority of your wealth is going to be is created, is your practice, your real estate, right? And then, the best thing you can do is just keep stacking that 10% to use that as leverage to acquire other assets, whatever they are.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that little fact that you gave us.
Now, so when we've been discussing a lot about like the business aspect and like owning the practice and stuff, but what are some of the most common problems that you see with the personal finances of the doctor when you evaluate their house and home?
Yeah.
They run their household with their wife, kids, whatever.
I think the number one, most of them don't have a plan. They just kind of operate on, whatever they've been told to do. It's not having like a plan that has a very descriptive ideal. Like I always start off like, what would be the ideal financial scene for a household? Like let's start there. Like, what's the ideal financial scene for a household? Number one, it would be a household that has, an abundance of income coming in from multiple sources. You'd be free of all bad debt. You'd have your assets protected from taxes, inflation, and lawsuits. Your business would be profitable and valuable, and you'd have time to pursue whatever life goals that you had. Like that's the definition of financial freedom right there.
That's awesome.
Right? Start there. Okay. And then look at your present condition. Like, where are you? Well, the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you use statistics. Now, you mentioned KPIs for the business. Most people have 0 KPIs for their household.
Awesome.
Like,
Let's go.
There's nothing that they measure. Right. And, so we actually created like 17, 18 different financial metrics that people can use to measure the financial condition of your household. Like your effective tax rate would be an indicator, right? Your debt to income ratio would be an indicator. Your net worth would be an indicator. We have what else? We have like a savings ratio would be an indicator. I mean, we got like a whole bunch of like these indicators for the household, right? So that owner can now, again, you're trying to run your household like a business. You need stats to run them.
100%.
Right? So, and this is kind of the indictment of my industry, is that there's only a couple of dental specific advisors or practice advisors out there that I've seen that have kind of adopted that approach. Most of them, the Smith Barney or the Ameriprise guys, it's just, hey, how much do you got? Or here's a big fat insurance policy. Let me sell you that.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Cause we've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of times that's where it ends up.
Yep.
We hear lots about insurance.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys do.
Yeah.
People love to pitch dentist insurance, and they love to pitch you guys. What else? real estate, maybe some advanced tax strategies, but not very many.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear a lot about it. And the thing is though, like my dad always taught me growing up, you don't want to be insurance poor. You know, you don't want to take out and spend tons of money on the premiums and all that stuff, and then they expire if you don't get whole life or whatever, and then you just spend all that money for no reason, you know, if it doesn't go through when you take excessive amounts of insurance out. You know, we protect ourselves.
You got to build those things correctly, and most people that pose as like financial advisors or just kind of insurance agents, they just try to sell a big honking policy to a dentist who's making $300,000 or $400,000, you know, and I got no problem selling insurance. I sell insurance to dentists all the time, but it's in the scope of a plan. And I kind of use that barometer of, okay, no more than 30% of their 10%. So I build a policy that way so it can be funded, right? So it's not, just to your point, it's not problematic on your cash flow by doing that.
Right.
So they do have a place. Don't get me wrong, guys. Those things do have a place in anybody's portfolio. But if someone utilizes that as the only tool, then then I get disinterested in what that person has to say from there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because most advisors don't, like, I don't get paid on pitching real estate to people or telling people to buy real estate. I don't get paid for that.
Right.
But I know that it's super important that you do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't get paid to get people out of debt. To a degree I do, but I know it's super important. I don't get paid to like tell you how to, you know, get your estate plan. Oh, you guys should get wills and all that stuff, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
What age do you think we should come up with that sort of plan?
Like the wills and all
Like
that, or
wills
just
and all that stuff, like to
you
leave.
guys
I mean, if we're single, you know, don't
Yeah.
have kids, no wife, nothing like that, and it's just like us, would we just leave everything in like in an account like your parents or whatever?
Yeah, I would probably at least go get a will and like some kind of a power, like if something happens to you guys, you get hit by a bus and you become disabled or something like that, someone's got to make decisions for you. And, you know, you'd think that it would be your parents right away, but, you know, it's not. You become wards of the state. So I would just make sure you get like just a basic will and some powers of attorney for healthcare and financial decisions. Those would be key. That doesn't cost much. You can go on LegalZoom.com and get that stuff done for maybe under $300.
Right.
You
Okay.
know.
So Eric, last topic here. We've covered everything, man. It's been awesome. So we've got really big eyes, really big appetite.
Yeah.
So I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying that they want to eventually sell their group, do a roll up, sell it to a bigger group, and then put it all into a REIT, and then just own like an apartment complex, and it's all in a REIT. So kind of a cool idea though, right? So what do you think when building a dental group, you know, maybe 3, 4, maybe 10 practices, what do you think are some of the most important factors to take into account when you're building a big group of a bunch of associates and partners?
Okay. Well, if you're going to have a really big organization, your key is to learn how to grow mini groups in that big group, right?
Right.
What I mean by that is that you're going to have to, a big group is just comprised of small groups. Okay.
You're talking the parent company has all the little smaller companies to go along.
Yeah, but exactly. But what I'm talking about is if you look at any big organization, they of course have like they're built in little teams, like maybe teams of 3 or 5 or whatever that would be. And you got to think that way when you're trying to build, if you're trying to scale a big organization, right? Obviously you're gonna have to hire really good executives and then build the infrastructure so that, you know, there's teams inside of this big giant group that you're trying to create. And, you know, it's that to me is kind of like because there's no way you can manage 50 people,
right,
or 100 people,
of course,
right? The one person can probably theoretically only manage about 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's when you want to start, you know, when you're building your organization, you know, start thinking that way as far as like, who would I have, who's going to be in charge of like the delivery of my organization, who's going to be in charge of the treasury, who's going to be in charge of the human resources, like build your layers of executives from there, and then have team members for each of those divisions as well. But I think if that's what what you're trying to do, I think you're going to have to be really, really good
Right.
on organization. That to me would be the key to scaling something like that,
Definitely.
you know?
Okay.
And if you can get good at that, then you can totally do it. Yeah.
So I've already created like a organizational chart.
Yeah,
and
good.
I'm like trying to think like, okay, how many practices do you need until you start like building a C-suite? And so from what I've been able to research is that most like big groups, the first person in the C-suite they take on is like a CFP who becomes the CFO, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Like, okay, yeah, CFO of the business. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
usually like one of the first, besides the CEO, is the founder owner. The first one they find is like the CFO, and
Yeah,
then
a
I guess
CFO or a COO, a chief operating officer as well,
Right.
would probably be somebody that would be, yeah. But there's, I mean, I guess you could just, there's a lot of these groups that you can just go talk to,
yeah,
and just ask them. I
Mhm.
mean, really successful groups, they'll tell you, like, this is
Yeah.
what we do. This is
Yeah.
exactly how we do it, and then just copy them.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there's no way, even if you copy them exactly, there's no way yours is going to come out the same. You know.
No, you'll have your own creation on it, but I mean, there's still some stable points in place that you have. But I mean, that's the fun part of it, I guess, is trying to do that. It's a big job, but other people have
Somebody's
done
gotta
it, so
do
why
it.
not you?
Yeah.
And then I have one more quick question. So we were talking about like if we were to go in to have a group together, just we'll talk about that.
Number one, do you guys like each other?
Yes.
A little bit.
A little bit. But one thing we were talking about was we'll just use my situation. So my mom is the director of surgery in the hospital. Like she runs the operating room. 60% of the hospital's production, everything comes from my mom's department.
Yeah.
She runs like one of the hardest jobs in the world is run an operating room because you have to manage ego and everything. But in order to run a dental practice is a lot easier than running an operating room. So to bring her in or somebody with her skill set to manage and run an operating room the way she does, where she has like 85 people versus us, we'd have in a small group, we'd have half that at most. You know what I mean? So doing that, do you think it would be a good idea to bring in some like a family member with like an incredible skill set, or would you shy away from that?
No, I got a physical therapy owner that's going to sell his business for $23 million, somewhere around there. He's got his aunt working for him on his treasury side and building collections. Right? No, not at all. As long as they're competent, you want competency.
Okay.
Like that's just not you just don't see that as much out there as like competency. And you really want to hire people, to me, and we just made this, sometimes we make our mistakes ourselves. We don't hire attitude and like emotional intelligence and tone level, right? Sometimes people think experience is more important than that, and it's not, right? It really isn't. And I never ever hire someone that just because they have a ton of experience, but they got a bad attitude, or they just don't think. They don't use good judgment. Like if you can find those people, you can train them. Like they'll be willing to learn anything.
Yeah.
And to me, that's really, really key. And I have personal experience with that. Is trying to fit it, is making sure you hire people based upon their emotional intelligence and competency. And that's way more important than maybe someone else that may have a little bit more of experience in that particular area.
Awesome. Listen, Eric, awesome
You guys want to do this again? Sometimes I can talk about this shit for like 2-3 hours.
That would be awesome.
We love this.
I'll tell you what, Eric, you're hired. This has been one of our best conversations. You're hired, man.
And whenever you guys want to like really dig deep in taxes too, because that's where it gets good.
Listen, next episode, let's do taxes. Okay.
Just fire away. If you guys, maybe I could, because I don't think I have any of your emails or anything like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can send you my contact information. So whenever you guys want to reach out and you want to talk about something, just let me know.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And just to make it super easy for you, this is Dental Student Vibes podcast. It's dentalstudentvibes@gmail.com. And to all of our listeners, feel free to email us with any questions that you have for Eric as well. And Eric, if you don't mind, can you give our listeners your contact information and how to reach you?
Yeah, you can go to, you can see in the background, Econologics, which is probably the worst name we could ever picked, just for a financial planning company, but there is a meaning behind it. Econologics.com, or you can go to wealthfordentists.com, wealthfordentists.com. Either one of those two.
I love
Really
that.
cool.
Wealth for Dennis. That's great. All right, Eric. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it really has. And then well, I guess we'll stay online so I can get maybe one of your email addresses.
You got it.
Perfect.
All right. Take
Cool.
care, Eric. Take it easy.
See you guys.